All my friends are good losers. Like it's good to surround yourself with good losers. and it's true. I mean, if you're a good loser, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, it's very true.
Welcome back, everyone, to Be the Trader. Today we have a very, very different episode. We're out here, obviously, on a lake. Got Nate from Investors Underground, Cody, aka Ostock Trader. If you're not sure who they are, you need to go check them out on the previous episodes. They've been on the show. We've talked about their background. But we're at a lake today because Nate bought this flight board and we went to try it out. So you need to check this out. You're basically flying. So I'm going to share some of the crashes that we did when we were trying to get on it. So throughout the show, so that way, if you're curious on what it looked like when we ate it, you'll see it. But to get this thing going, really, I just want to bring up the topic of just as simple as big picture topics. Like when I say a word, whatever comes to your mind first to start talking about, whether it was something that was a struggle, whether it was something that you really loved, whatever it is, start there. So the word of taking losses.
Part of the game.
It's gonna happen, yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of the game. That's probably the best way I would say it right there. Accept it.
I tweeted something maybe like last week, and like all my friends are good losers. Like it's good to surround yourself with good losers, and it's true. I mean, if you're a good loser, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, it's very true.
Why is that though?
I think it's a mentality thing. I don't know. It's like if you can accept that you can lose, life is a little bit easier. In a weird way.
What separates the people that can versus the ones that want versus the ones that haven't, can't, won't, is the only thing that kind of separates you is being able to control those losses. And as long as you can control the losses, finding good trades is not the issue. It's what you do when you're wrong that's going to set you apart. That's going to. I mean, my journey, there was a lot of ups and then downs, ups and then downs, and I was a very, very good trader. But it was always like that one trade that would bring me right back. So it's like, okay, I'm a mediocre trader. Really, really, really good, mediocre trader. So being able to control those, you're able to see a much different kind of P&L curve by minimizing those losses.
That makes sense. What would you say when I say the word discipline?
Gotta have it.
Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with the losses. Like I feel like if you can accept losses, you're probably pretty disciplined. It's hard for me to trust anybody who's always won during their life too as well. It's like if you've never had a struggle in your life, it kind of sets you on a different field as everybody else where, I respect people more that have lost during their life because it just makes you stronger in a way.
I think discipline is you don't even have to focus just on losses, right? It could be in your life.
Yep.
Eating right, training right, and like I've talked about, it helps trading right. So the more discipline that you have in your life, not just in trading, it's all going to kind of trickle down and help you as a trader.
So you do believe that if you can be disciplined in some area, it will trickle down or help you in other areas?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
More discipline,
100%.
more consistent, less variables, because you need to be able to come each day kind of prepared and not have to deal with this or that or like all these different things. I mean, if you're rushing to the desk and then you get into a trade, you're just not ready for it.
Yeah.
Same thing, we went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and one of the best traders I know didn't trade Monday. I'm like, man, there's some good setups, I'm going to trade. I ended up losing that day. And it's like, I went to bed at 4 a.m., it's like, what am I even doing? And I wasn't prepared, I didn't have good discipline, and here he is, he's just like sleeping like a baby and
chilling,
not losing any money.
Yeah, relaxing, living his life because he planned on it. He basically prepared himself, right? I'm not doing anything tomorrow.
So that just makes me think about the next word, preparation.
Most important.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, what's most important about prepping? What part? Or
Everything.
Specifically.
I think even if you don't trade anything that you're prepared for, you're still prepared because you have an idea of what the market cycle is doing, what's hot, what's working, what's not, and the more you prepare, the more. Look, you might not be preparing for tomorrow, but when you see that come in 3 days, 4 days, next week, you're already there. You're already prepared. So that's why that consistent going through, scans, and like Cody has this laundry list of different sectors. And when he starts to see maybe one or two, kind of start to go, he's prepared. He brings up that list and is like, all right, well, I'm going to buy all these when nobody cares about them. because these ones are starting to lead, and they're going to care about them in a week or two.
Yeah. Or even a few days in this market sometimes. But even to play on that point, like, I haven't traded a whole lot the last 6 months, so I'm not prepared. I don't know what really the market cares about, you know. So it even takes like a week, 2 weeks to just be like, all right, this is what the market cares about. Like, I'm so out of tune right now because it's taken like the first break in years that I know he hasn't. So
yeah, I'll give you another example
set,
too.
and I'm just kind of like, I'm gonna live life right now, and then I'll focus again.
It's important, otherwise you're never going to do it. And you know, a good buddy of mine, Helder, you know, he's a general contractor, and he had been doing, you know, okay. And then COVID hit, and you know, nobody wants you in their home. You're not going to be doing any general contractor work. And his trading just took on another leg. And he's more prepared, seeing the screen time, you know, being actually at the desk. And just that general sense of preparedness versus, all right, I'm going to trade real quick, and then I got to go and do this. I'm going to do this, and then I got to go do that. No, you're actually there, you're seeing it, you're absorbing it. And it may not seem like a big deal or a big thing, but you're taking on a lot more information than you realize.
It's a huge deal.
And you are applying it to the decisions that you make.
Because the market evolves over time, and like little changes here and there, and then if you don't pick up on those, then like your setup may have adjusted a little bit, still works, but it just changed a little bit, and you might be trading it improperly if you're not coming to the market with a full scope.
Exactly. He's been finishing up a project right now, to give you the same example. And so he's been he's done on Monday, and he's pretty pumped about it, but he's been kind of you know, the last couple weeks. And you know, he's excited to get back to be screen time because it 100% affects you, and you're not as prepared as you think you are when you actually see the screen and you're part of it.
Yeah.
But what about like, because I know you mentioned earlier that you like to take time off and you like to take breaks, right?
Yeah.
So when you come back, how are you coming back? Are you just jumping in, ready to go? Or,
no. Even I've noticed, even in like the few weeks that I've come back where I'm like, I'm going to be at home for 2 weeks, it took me almost the entire 2 weeks to be like, I know what the market kind of cares about now, and I'm leaving. So it's like the last like 3 days of the week, it's like, do I really want to pay attention? Because if I put a bunch of positions on, I'm just going to be like, why am I doing this? Because I'm going to be gone for a week. Yeah. So for me, it takes at least a week. Like the first day I came back from, I don't even remember where it was, probably somewhere in Mexico. Like the first 2 days, I don't think I took a single trade. I just watched to see what the market cared about, what news events led moves, and
absorbing.
You just have to digest what, like, for me, a lot of it is news kind of related stuff. I found that like if I see some headline and the market reacts or doesn't react, it kind of gives me an idea. All right, nobody cares about this. Nobody cares about whatever this is going on, or you know, whatever it's related to. It kind of gives me a clue as market doesn't want to take any risk in that department, so just move on to the thing that is actually moving.
I feel like you read more than you trade sometimes. Like you read ahead. But I mean, realistically, I mean, look at everything like the NFTs or the shroom stocks, whatever, all that kind of stuff. It's just like 2-3 years ago, like we were talking last night. Like no one cares. And he's like, no, I'm not crazy, I promise. And now we're like, damn, he was early.
And then you just nailed it. Which is
it's weird because I think that as you get older and you progress, I think you just figure out what you're good at, and you just ignore all the stuff that you're not. Like biotechs, I am horrible at them. I have no idea what drives the move, and maybe that'll be something I focus on later. But
on that note, too, you suck at summers.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Summers, I'm horrible at
summers. Every P&L curve has always been this, and then this huge close.
Yeah, it's weird every end of the year, but it's like I'm tech focused, so like. I've always loved technology. I'll buy the coolest drone. I'll buy it just to test stuff out. Yeah. It's probably the same reason I got into NFTs, because I wanted to just test out the technology.
That's a crazy drone, by the way.
Yeah, and that drone is super fun. We'll link it below.
Yeah, it's locking on a target, it just follows you.
Yeah, so it's an AI drone that follows you like a target that you can, you know, it's pretty sweet. The footage is amazing, and you'll be shocked. We'll probably post some clips of it. But.
What's interesting is that you said you come back and you maybe 2 full days just watch. Were you always that way, or how did that come about?
I think it was just a progression, because previous years it was, I'm here to make money. Like I always treated it as like a job. Like once the clock started, I got to try to make money. But once you have like such a big padding, and I know Nate's talked about this over and over again in the past, you just kind of treat it a little bit different. Like, do I really need to take a trade at 9:30, or do I want to, you know, Well, for me, it's 6:30, 7:30, but, you know, do I want to go have breakfast or something? But I'm almost always there for the open, but I almost never take a trade in the first 10 minutes unless specifically now it's an options trade.
I think the last like 2-3 years, you've gotten a lot better listening to like the warning shots.
Yeah.
Like before you'd have 118 positions. You're like, maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't. I know it's not good. And then you get back a good portion. But I feel like every time you get that first warning shot, you're like, you know what, screw it.
Yeah,
I'm out.
pretty much.
And then you take off time, and it was probably the best decision. And you know, before you try to fight it, and you're like, all right.
Yeah, like even the last one, like
It's almost like you wear yourself out too if you did fight it, and then when a good time comes, you're kind of like mentally exhausted, so it's just like tougher to go.
Yeah, and I think my wife can attribute this. I think it's probably, my mind probably just gets sick of listening to the same 1 hour mix for 8 hours a day for like 3 months straight. And it's true, like I'll listen to the same 1 hour YouTube mix of music the entire day, and then I'll do it again the next day and the next day until I get sick of it. And sometimes it'll last 3 months.
What about risk?
For me, I would say I'm very risk averse, but when I see the right things, it's pedal to the metal. And I'll probably start buying more things than I should. And I think even Nate knows that, where like, if I see one thing move, I'll buy like 20 different stocks related to it. And whether I'm right or not, you know, I'd rather kind of be first, because then your risk it's kind of set at that bottom level. Because if nobody's touched it for like 2 years, I'm basically buying the bottom no matter what. And if it doesn't move, if
You
it's
take on a
OTC,
position with a set risk. You kind of jump in, all right, I'm willing to lose 20, 30, 50, whatever.
Yeah.
You start with that, and then if it starts to go, you're able to scale a lot faster than somebody else.
Because I'm like, oh, this is right, or I'm wrong, I'll just take it off. But that's kind of how I've just evolved over the years. And I think it takes a lot longer than people think to figure this out, just because everybody's different. But you're never really going to get it in the first like year and a half, 2. Some people might, like prodigies, I guess you'd call them, but I think for most people, you got to just do it for like 5 years.
Yeah, but even prodigy, I mean, at some point you got to get smoked.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to
get whacked.
Yeah, I mean,
at least a couple times.
100%. And there's always that next one, that next potential. I mean, obviously it's about minimizing them, but you have to understand how you felt at that time, so that next time you get that feeling,
you know what to do.
You know what to do. You know, most of the time, or most of the reason people blow up is because it's like,
you never experienced it
to see what it
before,
does mode, like we talk about all the time, but like, you haven't experienced it, and like, how much higher can it go? And all these, all those questions you ask.
A lot higher.
Exactly. So
another 5 times, 10 times
you
higher.
You have to experience that. It's just part of the game, and I mean, every single great trader I've known has gotten smoked in a bad way. So, if it hasn't happened yet, I mean, congratulations, but at some point it makes you a better trader. And, when you're faced, I think it helps with risk, discipline, losses. You never want to go back there, and you get comfortable taking them.
And you can write down all the rules that you want for risk, but until you experience it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's
because then it's like hard coded in your brain and your emotions.
Risk is an easy thing to control. If you have a problem with it, like for me, if I was a stubborn trader, like I'm not anymore. I mean, knock on. There's no wood here. There's a rock.
You're standing on a deck of wood.
That's not. That's fake wood. But
you're actually not on the lake.
But you can put a back stop. So there's a number that's going to keep you in the game. There's a number that's going to keep you comfortable to come back the next day. Yeah. And if you're going to take a month or a week, 2 months or a quarter, whatever,
a summer,
a summer's worth of work back in one trade.
Yeah.
You can prevent that by locking yourself out. Like max stop on money, and then you can't trade the ticker the rest of the day. And that's a great thing to do, because it's those ones that get out of hand. When you don't respect your risk, and then you're, okay, I'm here now, like, and then you start getting all emotional. You start, you don't really have a game plan, and then they rock it. And so if you can just cut that out, if I did that with all the biggggest losses I've had, I mean, I'd
probably be in a better situation.
More cash.
What about though? What about emotions?
Control them.
Yeah, the only word that came to mind was control them.
Like, what do you mean when you think of that? When you say control them, like, because some people would say like you can't control your emotions. What do you mean?
I don't think you can carry any emotions that you've had like in the last 24 hours into the next day. I think that like if you got an argument with your spouse or your girlfriend or whatever, like If you take that into the computer and the setup, and you're just going to trade horribly, because that's going to be all that's on your mind. So it's the best to just avoid, for at least for me, if I'm ever in that situation, which is very rare, that I just won't trade, because I've learned from previous stuff in life to just don't let emotions control you, because that's the worst result you're gonna have.
Trading's a little weird though, because it does like play into regular life too, right? And it's like, you know, we're going on vacation. Like, Nate, are you excited? Like, you haven't even like.
What am I missing because I'm going on vacation?
But it's just like the more highs and the more lows you have, the worse of a trader you're gonna. The more aggressive, the wrong time, all these different things are gonna come in, and you're gonna be a worse trader. So, as you control those, it also comes into your daily life, which you kind of have to figure out too.
Yeah.
Because it's like, are you excited? Yeah, I mean, I think I am, but.
I love that y'all both went to, when I say emotions, y'all both went to like anything. It wasn't really trading. It was just like emotions in general, of like if you're in a fight or if you had an argument with someone or feeling some type of way, any type of emotion, doesn't have to be trading related, can really interfere with your trading. So that's neat to hear that you guys both went there like right away, because it just shows that, I mean, that's happened to me for sure, where I got in a fight maybe with my wife at one time, and then in my head maybe I'm just like upset, and you trade different, and you might make some mistakes. So it's interesting you guys both went there, because immediately I'm sure the audience is probably thinking emotions when trading, but it's probably could be worse if because now you have something tied to it. So
and the market doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
like the market doesn't care.
It doesn't care.
And so like if you're going to try to take your frustrations out on the market, good luck.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of frustrations, when I say frustration, what comes to mind?
I shouldn't have sold so early. Probably for me, yeah. Shouldn't have sold so early.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's been a lot of those opportunities like GME and things like that where I'm sized, very nicely sized, and
sell a day early,
it goes up $20 real quick, and you're like, this is the greatest trade I've made, and I'm all set with it. And then
it goes up $120
after
or $300.
I'm like, well, damn.
wait, oops.
Yeah, that was
such an idiot, I guess now.
And then you step in front of it and give a little bit of it back, and you're like, all I had to do was just, I use this example, I just needed to take Beckett for a walk.
Yeah.
Like literally. And it could have been a multi-8-figure type trade.
Nuts. It's crazy. And Beckett is his dog. So just FYI, if you're wondering, who the heck is Beckett? Now, what about failure?
Embrace it.
I mean, you
for
just
one
gotta.
word for me.
I think everybody's gonna fail at some point.
Yeah.
I think it's being able to combat that, being able to come back, not give up, keep going, and I mean, I've failed. I had to rebuild from zero. I think Cody's like a really good example of like multiple times, and
really
he was
close
a poker
to just
player.
the
He's
end.
like, I'm down to the felt again. And,
Pretty much, yeah.
But it's like that mentality not to give up, and but you also have to like have some responsibility as far as like what got you back there, what created this, because a lot of people don't spend the time at kind of like looking at how they got there again.
Yeah.
And you've got to avoid that. And the more things that you avoid, just like even if you've never had a huge loss, you're gonna have one, but you have to have that because you're just at some point it's gonna come.
Yeah.
Better to happen sooner than later. So until you're established, you're on. You got kids and all this stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this isn't good.
But I'll probably butcher the quote, but there was a saying, it's like Thomas Edison, didn't fail 2,000 times at making a light bulb. He found out 2,000 different ways how you don't make a light bulb until he did. So it's like, failure is it's going to be something that you're going to experience, and if you just let it take the most of you, you're probably just going to give up, and you weren't meant to succeed in the first place.
Yeah.
Hesitation?
I'm hesitating.
I know, I'm hesitating too. That's a good one. I don't know,
guys. That's never happened to me.
The first words that came to my head was buy more. Because whenever I hesitate, it's usually the trades that are the best ones. And I don't know why that is, but if I just hesitate, I'm like, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Those are almost always the ones where like I should have. But it's always the ones where I'm like, yeah, this is going to work. And I mentioned this before, like, yeah, this is going to be a great trade. And it never works.
Yeah.
But I found when I hesitate.
I would almost go opposite. And the only reason is because if you hesitate, you're unsure, like put on a feeler, like get familiar with it, rather than hesitate and maybe I will. Oh, that was a bad idea. At least you've got partial position. Yeah. But I mean, if it hits Cody's list, then just go all right. If you hesitate and it's on his list, go.
Yeah. Fine tune with the market. It's a little different. So make sure you don't just be like, oh, don't hesitate. Every time you feel hesitate, buy more. Like, don't do that. Like, just you stick with what works for you.
Have traded for at least 10 years for that one to work.
I hesitated, buy more.
And I would say that because I've had a lot of experience and I know it's just a gut instinct for me. Like I trade, because the book, I've read it before, it's The Inner Voice of Trading, and there's also a bunch of other ones, I couldn't even name them off, but like, I trade a lot out of my gut instinct. You know, I've trusted it my whole life and it hasn't really served me too wrong, so.
I have like a rule, like the third or fourth time Cody tells me to buy something, I buy it. I ignore him the first 3 or 4 times.
That is very accurate, actually.
What about the journey?
Don't think it's going to be straight up in a straight line, you know.
Yeah.
It's going to be twists and turns, and it's going to be all over the place. Yeah. And it's going to take you places you don't even expect, especially emotionally. And
does it ever feel like it's more of a coast?
Maybe later on, but definitely not. And like, there's always a certain like monetary point I think everybody tries to get to. For me, like my intention from the day one was I did not want to work for somebody, and I wanted to just have freedom. So once I hit a certain point in my head at the beginning that I said, I was like, I'm going to take time off and just be free, because that's why I got into it in the first place. So, and to lose sight of something like that I think is really important. You know, it's like the movie 21 where the guy's like, I'm doing this just to pay for grad school or whatever, medical school. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie or not, but he ends up making like $400,000 or something like that from the MIT blackjack thing. And the girl asks him, why are you still here if you've already done what you originally set out this entire journey for? And he's like, well, because now I love it and I want more of it. But I think you kind of have to always remember why you did it in the first place.
Makes sense.
And if it's always monetary based, I mean,
it's
just a bad goal.
You'll never be satisfied.
It's such a bad goal, because it's always going to change. You know, once you get to certain levels, it's your life's going to change, your thoughts are going to change, everything that you...
Especially if you improve your lifestyle.
Yeah. And
if you do that,
you wanted to get here, you get there, and then now you like start to enjoy maybe the finer things, and then you get to here, and then you get to here. Maybe you don't. Yeah. But maybe you get there, and it's not what you thought, and then you're feeling even more lost. You know, you're looking for a different purpose, things like that. So, I mean, if you're always trying to get to X, it's just such a bad way to go, right, in my opinion. And I think, I've said before, time fixes everything too. As long as you're like, this is where I want to be, this is where I'm working towards, and you've got those kind of goals, I think that's fine. But if you're always focused on X, it's just, I don't think it's a good way to go.
I agree.
Well, what about when it comes to goals as a new trader? I'm just curious now, the whole idea of, you had a goal. I don't know if this was your goal at that time, but you mentioned there was a number I wanted to reach, and when I reached that number, I was like, okay, let me start doing what I wanted to do. Yeah. Did you have that goal from the beginning? And because one says maybe not think about the money so much, so what are good goals to maybe think about?
I think it was like a mental thing. It was like when I felt like I didn't need to be at the market every single day. Like I knew there would be that point, whether it was the money or whatever it was, I knew there'd become a time where I felt like I had achieved enough to just step away to make sure I wasn't, number one, addicted to it, because that's a real thing. But there was that moment in time where I was just like, you know what, I've made this big mistake where I give back like 20% of everything I made, and I just decided at a certain point, I'm like, I'm comfortable with what I've made. I'm just gonna cut it before that happens. I'm gonna take it and run, and then I'll come back to it. I'll enjoy life a little bit, and I've enjoyed it for the last 6 months, and I think you get bored with the certain things that you do over time too. So like, I don't remember who even said it to me, but you'll get bored of traveling, you'll get bored of sitting on the beaches, you'll get bored of all these different things that you like to do, more than likely, and it's the one thing that you really like to enjoy. So I know I love trading because I haven't get up in 10 years, so I know I'm gonna go back to it.
Yeah.
Like it's an
By
obvious
the way,
thing.
Cody's talking about getting bored of traveling. He's literally not taking a cruise 3 weeks next year. The rest of the week he's cruising.
They don't need to know that.
I was saying like in terms of goals at the beginning. You know what I'm saying? When you first started, like goals like that, like what kind of goals were you thinking or at that time? Like, were you thinking a monetary goal or were you thinking?
Absolutely, it starts off monetary goal.
Yeah.
I definitely think that. And you know, everybody just wants to become a millionaire, you know, or
Yeah.
you want to get to 100K and then 200, 500 and
Then it just keeps
you know,
going.
but it exponentially grows, right? Because it goes 100, 200, 500, a million, 5 million, 10 million, 20, 50, 100. And you can see that it starts to jump.
Yeah.
And so if you're always getting there, you're never going to get there. And all of a sudden you're going to be 75 years old and you're going to be like,
Where did my life go?
yeah. So, I mean, look, that is for some people, and that's fine. If you're like totally cool with that, that's great. But I think a lot of people's perspectives change when they have kids. And you know, look, when you're doing this for 15 years, I mean, it's also very hard to kind of change that, you know, and like he's taking time off. That's great. That's something I've worked. It's been my like goal, like
Take a cruise.
No, but like 2019, 2020. I mean, I completely failed at taking off more time.
Yeah.
But this year I'm doing it. This year I've done it. I've taken off more half days.
We're doing it right now.
Yeah, I did it on Friday. You know, I was
like it's Saturday,
I was on
right?
time, by the way, on Friday, Texas time.
Texas time.
But I think it all just changes, and you start to think about different types of goals. And like we've talked about, I reached out to Greg after like January and February, which was, I pretty much did my 2020 year in 2021, January and February.
Damn.
And it was just a weird feeling. And I called Greg and I'm like, because I know he's been there, he's done extremely well. I'm just like, I'm so confused right now. And like, what's the purpose? Like, where am I going with this? And I think that's why like we do these kind of things. The Traders for a Cause, when we go out to Vegas, meeting people, seeing people come from nothing, turning into great traders, and then turning into somebody that,
they probably
does
didn't even
some
expect
phenomenal
themselves.
things. Yeah. And I think that's more I think that's the greater purpose. I don't know. I get more out of that than being like, oh great, I had a good trading day.
Yeah.
Somebody else killing it. You text me one day and say, I made X on this, best trade ever. That's better than any P&L that I'm going to have on, any given day. Like that's, I get a lot more out of that.
That's awesome. That's all. Well, before we start to wrap this up, though, I want to ask you, what do you guys think is, and it's so hard. I know trading's so complicated. I know trading, there's so many things, not just one thing that helps someone. But I'm very curious on if we had a trader right here, brand new, and they were like, what do I need to look out for?
Know yourself before you start doing it. Like, know who you are as a person, I think.
Can you go a little deeper in that?
Kind of like have an introspection session before you actually like get into it, especially if you get into it early with a lot of money, you don't know what you're doing. Because I started from like small. So like when I learned I lost, I mean, big to me, but it was overall in the game, Nate was laughing at it as far as like my losses. So it was like, but to me, I was like, that's money I could.
You did it right though.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd rather fail small than fail big early and have to work back everything I worked for.
He was going through the motions on
nothing.
Tiny, 10 to 50 shares.
Yep.
Yeah,
he's like
just
up $28.
Yeah.
down 11.
Made
up
$100
42,
today.
And
Right.
it was funny, and like how serious he was taking it. And I was like, this kid's passionate about it.
Yeah.
It's one step above paper trading, right? Because you're actually going through the motions,
Absolutely.
getting those orders through
Yeah.
and stuff. But what if he did that with 25K lost? 25K lost.
I'd give up
25K lost.
immediately, probably.
And
lot, yeah.
then you're out. Then you're out of the
You're
game,
also
and you gave up because you just tried too aggressively too fast. You can there's so many ways to try before actually doing. And I don't know what's the fastest way to make $100,000 is what, start with 200 or something like that.
Start with $1 million.
Yeah. The quote is like $1 million, the fastest way to make $1 million,
Right.
but
And I think there's
bring
a
it down
time
a little bit.
There's a time aspect too. Like if you're starting with like a large amount or X amount, realize how long it took you to save that amount, and then watch how fast if you start losing, how that'll affect you. Because if it took you, 5 years to save 50 grand and you're like, oh, I'm going to trade with this, and you lose 10 grand in the first like week, how's that going to affect you mentally? You're probably going to be like, wow, that was a year's worth of money that I just saved.
And I think a lot of people put like a not a value, but like, you know, rent, or like they put some type of
physical monetary
to what they're trading. And
could have bought a car with this money.
The further you can disconnect from your account value, P&L swings, unrealized, realized, the further you can disconnect, the better trader you're going to be, because at the end of the day, it's
you can't think like that.
Yeah, you're letting the trade work, and it's a plan, and you have to take on that risk. I mean, that's trading is about risk, taking on risk. And I mean, if you're always like, oh my God, I'm down my rent, like I can't. Like, how can you focus? How can you do that?
I think it's a Kenny Rogers song where it's like, don't count your money when you're sitting at the table. It's the same kind of thing. Like, don't necessarily always put the money as far as like what you're looking at, as far as like P&Ls, that type of thing. Yeah. Just don't, you have to detach from that thing completely. So, you know, in that old song, it's like, don't count your money while you're sitting at the table, because you should be focused on other things, not how many chips you got in front of you.
And stop looking at other people's journeys and their P&L.
Everybody's different. Kind of
crap. I mean, you mentioned it on you know, at the prior episode with Tim. Yeah. And you're like, I'm influenced by people. And you know, if you notice that, then just cut it out. Look, somebody's always going to make more money than you. Yeah. I mean, it's a fact.
Or print more
your
money
best
than you.
day, your best day, guess what? You know, somebody else made 100 times more than that. Yeah. You know, and it is what it is. And so it's your journey, and you just have to be able to control it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, look, guys, I appreciate y'all so much for being here, making this happen. And if you like this content, make sure to like, subscribe, and then check them out. Their links are going to be below in the description. Thanks again, and come back next time.